Recording in progress.
Thank you. Noswaith dda. Good afternoon and welcome to this evening's hearing. I'll do some order of procedure after, but then I'll start with some very important points, if you bear with me. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to today's meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, which is a multi-location meeting. I'm Councillor John Roberts and I will be chairing the meeting. In addition to committee members, we also have officers joining us to assist with our discussions, together with members of the public making representations who will be introduced at the appropriate time. I can confirm that the committee officer has conducted a sound check before the start of the meeting, so I assume everyone can hear me. That goes on Zoom as well. Yes, thank you. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and the recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those joining remotely, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave the camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making progress. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware and let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers, registered public speakers, and anyone in the public gallery. Thank you for that. I'll move on to the agenda. Before I do that, shall I do that first? Yes, I'll get people to introduce themselves. As I said, I'm Councillor John Roberts. I'm Chair of Licensing Committee. I'll start with Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally Morris-Pritchard. I'm the Committee Services Officer here to take minutes of the meeting tonight, this evening.
Hi, I'm Councillor Alan Hunter. I'm a member of the Licensing Committee.
Evening, I'm Councillor Andrew Wood. I'm Vice Chair for this meeting.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. John Donnelly. I'm the Principal Trading Standards and Licensing Officer for Conway Council, representing the Head of Regulatory Services.
I'm Maya Roberts, Licensing Officer for Conway.
Thank you. Aaron.
Aaron Haggis, Licensing Officer for North Wales Police.
Rhiann Davis, Senior Environmental Health Officer for Conway County Borough Council.
Hugh Williams, Principal Environmental Health Officer, Conway Council.
Thank you very much. We all know who the officers in the room are, and we'll come to the applicants and the objectives after in time. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the agenda. Any apologies for absence, please, Sally?
No apologies, Chair.
Any declarations of interest? No. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and nature of the declared personal interest. There aren't any. Okay, item 3, urgent matters. I'm not aware of any. Andrew? Owen? John? Thank you. Right, item 4, Licensing Act, or post-application of premises licence on Kilter, Coed Coch, Dolwen. Now, the hearing procedure is set out here, and I will go through it for you all to know. I will have ultimate control over the proceedings. And the head of or his representative, Mr. Donnelly, will outline the application. Then the applicants or their representative will make the application and call evidence as appropriate. Then the objectors, you will be allowed then to ask questions of the applicants. And us as members will also be able to ask questions at that stage. Then the objectors will be invited to give their evidence. And the applicant, after that, will be invited to question the objectors, okay? And then us as members will then be able to ask you questions as well. Now, the objectors at the end will make a closing speech. If I could ask, there's so many of you, maybe one person could do that. And then the applicant may make a closing speech. Nashwan he is our legal advisor. He's on Zoom, and I believe he wants to come in now. Is that right, Nashwan?
Yeah, sorry, I should have introduced myself earlier. I am Nashwan, the legal advisor to the committee. And just while you're going through the procedure, I've noticed on the procedure it doesn't provide for the responsible authorities to either present their case or ask questions. So you might want to factor that in now while you're outlining the procedure to the members of the public and everyone else in attendance.
Sure. If I get that right, I'm sure that I'm right in thinking that Mr. Donnelly has said that the responsible authorities will be able to come in on after the objectors. Is that right, Mr. Donnelly?
The responsible authorities are treated as objectors and be brought in as and when the chair decides, but normally at the same time as any objections. Just to reiterate, Chair, there is a nominated person for a number of people, but some people may want to put their own case forward when it comes to the closing statement.
Sure, okay. I was just trying to help to move things along, Mr. Donnelly. Right, after that, we will, the meeting then will be over as far as the public is concerned, and then we will deliberate and we'll give you our result or decision following that. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Donnelly, another question?
Not a question. Can I just ask anybody participating tonight, speak clearly into the microphones so people can hear it in this room, and also Ashman can hear on the Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Right, over to you, Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. The Licensing Authority has received an application for a premises licence submitted in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003. As a consequence of the necessary consultation period and a required public notice, the Licensing Authority has received relevant representations opposing and supporting the application. Members of the Licensing Committee are reminded they may not exercise discretion in any case, merely because it considers it to be desirable, and should provide reasons for any decision taken, where they may consider departing from protocol, policy, or guidance. The subcommittee must have regard to the representations made and take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The subcommittee can grant the application subject to the relevant mandatory conditions and the conditions consistent with the operating schedule, modify the application and/or impose any conditions to such an extent that the authority deems appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, reject the application. On the 30th of the 5th, 2023, an application was submitted to the licensing authority for the premises known as Coed Coch, Dolwyn, Abergele. The applicant placed public notices in local newspapers and notices adjacent to the premises. All notices were published and displayed in the correct manner. Representations that have been deemed to be relevant by the Head of Regulatory Service and Housing have been received in respect of the application within the 28-day statutory period. Representations objecting to the application are attached in Appendix B. Representations have been deemed relevant by the Head of Regulatory Service and Housing be received in respect of the application within the statutory 28-day period. Representations supporting the application are in Appendix C. Members will note that in considering the application, they should take into account, balance the interests of owners, employees, customers, and neighbours of the premises, and the steps already outlined by the applicant in the operating schedule and any other subsequent documents. Members should carefully consider the relevant sections of the Council Statement of Licensing Policy. Section 3.44, the Licensing Authority will balance the potential for limited disturbance in neighbourhoods with the need to encourage and promote live music, dancing and theatre. The Licensing Authority acknowledges the powers that the Council and Police hold to issue a closure order on individual licensed premises that are causing noise and nuisance as a result of noise emitted, and will encourage the relevant responsible authorities to use such powers whenever appropriate and inform the licensing authority in such an event. The above powers are available to authorised officers under the Antisocial Behaviour Act 2003. Such powers will be used when deemed necessary and in accordance with legislation. The responsible authorities with those powers are Environmental Health and North Wales Police. Noise and disturbance arising from behaviour of patrons that have left the premises are a matter for personal responsibility and are subject to police enforcement of the normal law concerning disorder and antisocial behaviour. A number of comments and observations from the officers. The representative objecting to the application are that premises will cause an increase in public nuisance and crime and disorder. Officers have carried out a site visit to ensure the plan and the information submitted are accurate. The licensing authority facilitated a mediation meeting between the applicant and the responsible authorities making representations. 2 persons have made requests to view the application and the operating schedule. The applicant attended and received guidance with regard to the event from Conway Safety Advisory Group, and there are no further comments with regards to the Safety Advisory Group. On the 28th of the 6th, 2023, licensing officers attend the site and confirmed that the lake pond has physical barriers preventing access. The applicant has confirmed that no person under the age of 18, unless exempt under the Licensing Act, will be on site during the event. Those exempt are usually people who are working or live on the site. The applicant has confirmed that the maximum occupancy on site will be 400 persons. Members will need to determine whether or not the controls suggested in the operating schedule and subsequent documents and proposed amendments would overcome the concerns of those making representations. There are referrals to regards to bats animals within the application. This is not a matter for the licensing committee and is dealt with through planning legislation, and as planning are a responsible authority under the Licensing Act, they should have made representations. It must be noted that the applicant, there was no requirement to apply for a premises license. He could have applied via a temporary event notice, but chose to go to public consultation instead of going through the temporary event notice. Members will also note that there will be mention of the 2021 event, which was unlawful, but was dealt with and sanctioned by the police and the local authority appropriately, so therefore shouldn't be a matter for them to consider. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I'm now going to call on the applicants. If you could introduce yourselves when you speak, please, and present your case. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Archie Featherstone Hall. I am one of the applicants.
And I am Alex Constable, one of the co-directors of content for Kilter.
Two guys.
Is that better? I'm Alex Constable, one of the other directors.
Good evening. I'm Chris Beale. I am Director of Hydrock Consultants. We have been appointed very late in the day to assist Mr. Featherstone Hall in the process of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present this application. On Kilter is a 400 capacity music, arts and food event held on my father's farm at Coedcorch Estate. The event is set to take place between Thursday and Sunday this coming weekend. The mission statement of the event is to create a platform for artists across the UK to come together, grow and celebrate each other's progress in a symbiotic and respectful environment of appreciation and education. We bring this event to you with a clear understanding that the event in 2021 at Coedcorch was mismanaged, and after extensive research and working with industry experts, we're confident that we can demonstrate to this subcommittee that our event this year is considered and in line with all of the licensing objectives. A huge part of On Kilter is to show support to and educate our guests on the rural agricultural processes that bind the Coed Corth community and the wider economic community of North Wales. To this extent, we also received positive support from several companies within the local community who can attest to this. We are clear on our objectives as an event, and we fully understand we must promote the 4 licensing objectives with equal diligence. As such, our event poses no threat to children, as they will not be allowed on site. Photo IDs are required on entry, and we operate a Challenge 25 policy at the bar. Public safety will be properly protected by our event management plan, risk assessments, and traffic management plan, which have been developed in communication with the Security Advisory Group. As for the prevention of crime and disorder, we have engaged a local security firm with whom we have developed a full and conclusive security plan. And as for the prevention of public nuisance, I will ask Mr. Chris Beale to speak for our extensive noise mitigation plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have come to this very late in the day, over the past 2 or 3 days, in fact, and I have reviewed all the paperwork, the representations, and the noise management plan, which was presented by the former noise consultants. I can only comment on noise. That is my speciality, and I have no other area of expertise. My conclusions from the noise management plan that was presented was that it was optimistic and would need further work in order to ensure that there was no danger to public amenity. I have had an opportunity to speak with the EHO, as you've seen, just as I came in. We have discussed perhaps a way forward where my modelling, which obviously cannot be presented in documentary form because it's come so late, but I have modelled the event in detail, and I have made recommendations for the containment of sound within the site. The site is very different from previous events, or the previous event, which will be the reason for these for the representations here. I can see that what happened in 2021 was disastrous in terms of its design and its implementation. A very, very different approach is required, and very specific sound levels are needed in order to make sure that residents are not affected by this event. To achieve that, there are 2 measures. One is by proper acoustic design, which I'm able to offer to the applicant, and also by means of a real-time noise monitoring system, which is a wireless system which is deployed at noise-sensitive premises and is relayed back to the site in order to make sure that levels are being adhered to. In addition to that, there are real-time displays in front of the sound operators, which instruct them specifically on their operating levels, what they can do and what they can't do. Above that, there is a noise consultant on site throughout who manages those controls and makes sure that they're adhered to. This enables us to, without any delay, and the metrics for compliance are based on a 15-minute measurement according to the guidance, but we are measuring in 1-minute segments, and we're able to react within 1 minute to a situation where noise levels are above those which might be specified by the environmental health officer's advice to you. This is a process that is deployed at many events. As you can probably see, I've been around for a bit and I've done many events of this kind. I was sound designer for Glastonbury for 10 years and now do many, many events of this kind, one of them being Gotwood. And when I became involved in Gotwood, it was in review, the license was in review, and a similar situation pertained, and I was able to redesign that, deploy a monitoring system, and we've had many years of Gotwood now, which have been very successful with very, very few complaints. And I would commend the process that we apply and the monitoring systems that we apply to you as the very best way of achieving a solution for the applicant and for the residents. The applicant is absolutely clear of his responsibilities and the penalties which would prevail if he didn't achieve them. So the responsibility on myself and my team is extremely high. I have confidence that I can achieve it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Anybody want to add anything there? You happy with that? Okay. I'm going to go over to the objectors now, if you'd like to ask a question or questions of the applicants. And could you please introduce yourselves before you do? Thank you.
My name's Eros Jones. I'm a representative of Tanrath Holiday Homes at Holiday Park today. Under the circumstances, I'm aware that we do have an environmental health officer who is far more experienced in especially the sound element of this matter. I appreciate that it is my opportunity at this stage. However, I wonder if, Mr. Chair, under the circumstances, he would be able to assist in the representations that we've just heard literally a minute ago.
Without preempting what the officers are going to say, would you like to come in now or would you like to come in at the end? Mr. Donnelly, I'm sure is going to say something.
That's up to you, Chair. Yes, the gentleman is correct there. We've had a 2-minute meeting 3 minutes before this started. I've not been able to read or have a look at any of the information. At the moment, I'm a bit in the dark.
Okay.
If I may, Chair? Yes. The representations from those making objections should come from those making objections, and they haven't employed anybody to make representations with regard to sound, and I'm sure the responsible authority will make his own representation when required. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, are you happy with that?
Can I firstly ask then of the applicant, this is presented as a family friendly or family and friends gathering. Now, you're charging £100 a ticket for this. Is this a fact you don't get on with your family, or why are you charging for this?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. So the event has been advertised as a friends and family event due to the scale and size of it, because it's 400 people. And so the family that we refer to is the wider community within this scene. And in terms of the number of people and also the price of tickets, that is the number that we had to set the tickets at in order to make the event in any way viable, and also to bring some money back into the local community in terms of the sourcing of a lot of the food, the power, the wood, etc. So that's why we've called it Friends and Family. But to that extent, we've offered concession tickets and discounts to anyone who's financially unable to meet the requirements. To that extent, there are people in Betterson Row who have purchased tickets for well below half price.
The point I make is that anyone can buy a ticket then. This isn't your friends and family. This is a fallacy. This is a festival, isn't it?
So although anyone could, any member of the public can buy a ticket, we are only found via word of mouth, and we expect almost all of our guests to have come to us through the artists playing and the scene and us knowing them by proxy at least.
But the website that you employed months before you made this application, for example, that's been selling tickets for 3 or 4 months now, has it not?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The website in question has not been advertised anywhere, and we haven't used any social media advertising or anything like that. It's so in terms of reaching the right places and the people that will engage with this kind of thing, that's why we've referred to it as Friends and Family.
But it's been referred on the BBC website, for example. So anyone who's read that under the title, there's a rave going on, or they oppose the rave, they could buy the final 15 tickets today, could they not?
We don't see how that would affect that's not going to affect the 4 licensing objectives in this case. Like, it's still going to be the site will still be secure, the site will still be safe in that regard.
You've said in your representations that you're not making any money out of this. Is that correct?
I haven't said that in my own representations, in my own application, but
Certainly in some answers that you've been addressing.
I've mentioned that privately to people. Again, this isn't about my own finances, but if to be honest, yes, this endeavor has cost me us both a lot of money over the years.
And is that why you've cut so many corners?
I'm not sure.
Hold on.
That's a matter for the chair.
Okay, Mr.
There's a couple of points, Chair. First of all, if there was no tickets sold and there was no sale of alcohol, this wouldn't require a licensed event. So therefore, that's why it falls within the licensed event, because tickets are sold and there is the sale of alcohol. It could be classed as an unlicensable event if nothing was sold and everything was given away for free. And with regard to a rave, that may be a term used by the press, but there is a definition under the Criminal Justice Act of a rave, and this is not a rave as it's licensed. With regard to the third question, that's a matter for you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
I did say at the beginning, that please, be civil in your questions. I don't think there's any need to say things like cut corners or anything like this. But ask the question in another way, fine. But not like that. If
the
we
reason
don't
why I
mind.
say cut corners, sir, Mr. Chair, is that we have an expert who's been instructed quite literally at the 11th hour, whereas usually we would have the application submitted prior to selling tickets, for example. We would have a decision from this committee as to whether or not a license is granted and then potentially sell the tickets afterwards rather than do it 2 days beforehand. That's the only thing I meant, Mr. Chair, by the point cutting corners.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, there's no requirement to have a license prior to the sale of tickets within the legislation. And as a trading standards officer as well, there is no requirement. If the event failed, then people would be entitled to their money back, whatever that may be through other legislation.
Anybody else? You want to carry on?
If I may, questions then to the sound expert. As you've heard, Mr. Chair, we've had no opportunity to consider, nor has the committee today, the further submissions made. Is it possible for him to tell me how many people will be affected by the noise in this locality?
I've referred to the former noise management plan, which was presented by F1 Acoustics, and looked at local plans and taken advice from the applicant as to where the noise sensitive properties might be. And I've identified 20 properties in the vicinity of the site, which are potential receptors. I'm not local. I do not have an intimate knowledge of every single property within the area, but I believe that these 20 properties are representative of all of the areas that might be affected by the event.
And does that include the caravan parks, which are adjacent to the applicant's property?
One of those, I believe one of those positions is a caravan park. As I say, I don't know every single caravan park in the area. My methodology is to look at all of the potential receptors that I can identify and to calculate and model the impact of the event upon them. There will be other properties that I don't know about, or maybe further afield that will not be affected, or maybe to some degree affected, but that will be represented by the calculations to the properties that I've selected, because I've chosen all the points of the compass and as many properties as I can gather within my assessment at this time. But I'm more than happy to provide calculations for any property within the scope.
But the fact is that these calculations should have been done previously and should have been submitted to both ourselves and to the committee before today.
Well, you have the bundle, and you know that they were, because there was a submission by F1 Acoustics, which is part of the application documents. And the reason that I'm involved is that the original company that supplied that is unable to provide service to the event. They don't have the necessary skilled staff, and they don't have the necessary equipment. So I was asked to help, which I'm doing. I have no prior knowledge of the applicant. I have no prior knowledge of the residents here. I'm simply offering my professional advice, and I can only do my best. And I honestly believe that there are flaws in the original noise management plan. I believe that the background levels have been overestimated, and I believe that the noise levels on site will need to be lower than that estimated by the noise management plan. I have done that work, but of course I can't present it because it's too late in the day for the application. However, I'm confident in the calculations that I've done, and I believe that very strict controls are going to be needed to allow this event to happen. Providing those controls are followed and providing the instructions of my staff are followed, I believe that the event can take place without causing any disturbance. That's it.
Thank you. We all appreciate that you've come in at a late time. So, but thank you for your observations.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, Mr.
And from the statutory guidance with regards to the Licence Act, Section 182 from the Home Office, 8.46. Although it's good practice for applicants to seek guidance from responsible authorities, it's not a requirement. So any document submitted is a working document right up until the time the event takes place.
But it is worth noting that the document submitted previously was a cut and paste from last year, having had all the relevant documents from last year's application. So you're actually building on that foundation, are you not?
That's incorrect. The original noise management plan was a flawed document, was replaced by a document provided by F1 Acoustics, which is part of that is the document that the applicant has submitted. I have assessed the F1 Acoustics noise management plan and found it to be wanting in small areas, which do not undermine the veracity of that noise management plan. It just means that I don't think it's severe enough in terms of its advice for control, and I think it overestimates the background levels in the area. But the document that forms part of the application is a proper noise management plan and prepared to with respect to all of the guidance.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just wanted to expand on that to maybe clear something up. Our noise management plan, at every point we've been trying to improve it, and thus improve our chances of not disturbing any neighbours. So when F1 Acoustics were brought in, we chose them and asked them to write the NMP because they were the best company that we could find for modelling. And the reason that Mr. Beale has been brought in at this stage and to improve in this is because we couldn't find anyone better in the whole industry to run this live. So at every stage, we've been trying to improve the NMP right up until the event, and we will take advice. It's not because we've been changing the plan. We've been improving it step by step. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I have one final question for the applicant.
Of course.
And this is in relation to 2021, where you yourself have brought that up. So I asked the question that a number of assurances were given to the local residents at that point that the music would be turned off at certain times, that it would be turned off completely. And you were phoning people to assure them that that would be the case, and went completely back on your word every single occasion, including the police, did you not?
As I said, we've learned a lot of lessons from 2021. I can't speak to those exact. I can't speak to what you're saying. I doubt I was lying, but we've learned this is a totally separate application to 2021, and it's been a massive 2 years of learning and improving and growing. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Please. Just whilst we're on that, Wyn Williams, I live at Penagalen, which is half a mile from the site. In terms of the noise management, and obviously the experts that were originally in 2021 have been employed as F1, we're now here tonight at the very 11th hour, 2-minute meetings held, because obviously it's not of the order that your now employed expert, Mr. Beale, is employed to do. On the Saturday of the 2021, which would be the 17th, you called me to say you heard that I was very upset with regards to basically being disturbed at home, and the actual sound sounded if it was outside the window. It just wasn't loud. It was, it was horrendously loud. At 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, Saturday afternoon, you spoke to me. You assured me 3 things. 1, that you had experts on site and that you were going to ensure that you'd been round the back of my premises, you had taken sound readings, and that we would not hear anything. Secondly, you confirmed to me and promised me, assured me, that at midnight it'd be turned off. Thirdly, with regards to this, when it wasn't turned off at midnight and the music became louder, I rang your telephone mobile number on several occasions, and I still await the courtesy of a reply. This, Chair, to us as local people running businesses, having assurances from somebody that quite categorically, from the plan and what I've read so far, should not be actually doing this. But, it's not love thy neighbour. It's actually 2 fingers up to the community and businesses. And I have got no compunction whatsoever that this gentleman's word is not good. It cannot be relied upon. And from my experience of the 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Donnelly?
If I may, Chair, I've already said it once, and I need to remind those present that the event in 2021 was dealt with by police and local authority. For whatever, the police did have the power of closure at that time and chose not to do it, and the local authority did take sanctions against the premises. So it's not a matter for members to consider, although I can't control what people say during the hearing.
But Mr. Chair, on that point, it has been raised by the applicants themselves, so therefore we are simply responding to representations made by the applicants, which included the event in 2021.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please rest assured that we will take that into consideration. Okay. Excuse me. Any other objectives, please? Yeah. Could you please state your name and your question?
Hi, my name's Lorraine Davis. I live at Tinwell Farm, which is less than a mile from Coed Coch. My concern is not just the noise levels, but it is also the time that this is being run till. The application is for it to run till 4 a.m. and then restart again at 9 in the morning. Over those 3 days, that's a total of 47 hours almost. If the music level is kept down, which I doubt very much, that means 47 hours of non-stop music that the community. The gentleman says he's viewed the area and there are 20 local properties. Just out of curiosity, out of those 20 properties, how many of those are tenants of Coed Coch? How many of those are your dad is their landlord? And I know for a fact that those tenants feel they do not have a voice and they cannot express concern over this. But for alcohol and music to be playing and available for 47 straight hours is, to my mind, beyond. And I know we're not supposed to bring it up last time, but he was untrustworthy with his word last time. The way this has been dealt with, we were referred to eagle-eyed people because no communication directly with the village was made, even though we have a village Facebook page. It was only brought up on that Facebook page because I posted a copy of this application. I didn't engage in conversation with you through Messenger because I was advised not to, because you do tend to be a little bit abrupt. I asked you then, why does the music have to run till 4 o'clock in the morning? Even Glastonbury has a curfew. Why can it not just stop at 12? Why have it till 4 in the morning? This is what I do not understand. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. Perhaps you'll be able to answer the lady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reasoning behind there is, first of all, that it won't be 47 hours of straight music. We've asked for a license between 9 and 4, and those will be the hours that music will play. They won't be round the clock. And the reason behind choosing 4 o'clock in the morning as the time we've asked for is that this scene and this culture that we are trying to bring together is a nighttime culture, and outside of the spaces that it operates, it would normally operate much later. 4 a.m. we chose as a nod to the community, and that was reduced in hours from what the guests are expecting. And to stop at midnight would make the event unviable. That's the answer.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
On 2 of the days, you propose to close at 11:30.
So the times we've asked for are Thursday from the music would be in the afternoon from I think 6.
From 6 till 12.
Till
And
12.
then till 12
On the
midnight.
Thursday.
So
12
what I'm
midnight.
trying to ascertain here is not 4 o'clock every single morning.
No, it's Thursday midnight, Friday 4 a.m., Saturday 4 a.m.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the large stage, the larger stage, relatively, will only be open from even smaller hours. So it'll only be open from 2 until 4. And that's from 2 in the afternoon until 4 in the morning. So the early hours from 9 a.m. onwards are going to be like massively reduced, but in terms of tempo, in terms of volume, in terms of the whole experience. And we did that hopefully because it's going to cause a lot less,
Yeah, forgive me, I just wasn't sure about the timings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My mic on. Any other objectors? Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Could you please tell us your name?
Yes, thank you. My name is Paul Frost. I'm a resident of Betterson Ross, and I live in direct line of sight of this event. I've got 3 questions to ask. In respect of the answers that have been given regards the time, can you confirm that the application for the Thursday in your application is from 1500 hours, which is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, to 23:59. On the Friday is from 9 in the morning until 4 the following morning, and on the Saturday from 9 in the morning till 4 the following morning, which would be the Sunday morning. And I believe that that makes up 47 hours, and that application covers both live music and recorded music. I'm actually quoting from a copy of the application, which is in your bundle, Chairman. So can you confirm, please, that those in fact are the hours and not what you earlier referred to?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I can confirm those are the hours I've asked for, and I believe they're the hours I've been stating, maybe 1,500 hours rather than 1,400 hours, but yeah, correct.
No, my reason for asking the hours is because you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, that the event would not be viable if you didn't close till 4 o'clock in the morning. Is that true? Is that what you said?
Yes. So if the event was, sorry, if the hours were much shorter than 4 a.m. in the morning, the event would become unviable because of the culture that we are trying to support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You can come back. The chairman over there has got a question. I'll let you come back after.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have two more questions. Can the applicant explain the type of access security that is around the fish pond? In other words, what is its type and how high is this?
If I may, Chair, I've already included in my report that officers have
Yes,
been on
you have.
site and confirmed that the pond is not accessible. And also the inquiry has gone through the safety advisory group, which includes health and safety representatives and the fire service. And again, no comments from them.
Does that answer your question?
I'm afraid it doesn't, Chairman. What I want to know, please, is what type of fencing is it and how high is it?
Mr. Chairman, it is but at least one, at most points, 3 layers of sheep netting and barbed wire fencing before you get until with pedestrian barriers beforehand. Yeah, it's heavy duty agricultural fencing for the most part.
And your third question?
As a supplementary to that, Chairman, is the applicant aware that the boundary of the event includes the roadside of the fishing pond, and that, for what I have seen recently, is covered only by a stone wall or stock fence?
Mr. Chairman, the licensable area that was within the site map goes the whole way around the premises of Coedcourt, but the event site is one field within that. So at all points, the event site is one field from the road and within and fenced in at all times. So the event site doesn't reach that corner of Park Newydd. Thank you.
Well, Chairman, all I would observe is that I didn't submit the event map. The applicant submitted the event map, and that includes all of the fish pond and the access from the road. But I'll leave it there. I've made the point. I have one more question to ask. How will the applicant manage the public footpath that runs across the event site?
Thank you. Again, the public footpaths that are within Coedcourt Park, one cuts through the northern side of within the licensed premises, and one the southeastern. Both again are within the licensable area, but far outside of the planned event area, so they will remain untouched by the event. Thank you.
Sorry, Chairman, as a supplement to that, I would like you to, as a committee, please look at the licensed area. It runs all the way around the road boundary to the Coedcourt estate, and there are areas inside which show effectively what I assume would be marquees and so on. Is the applicant saying that the music and the licensing will be contained entirely within those? I think they're in orange on the site map. Is that where they won't be going outside of that? Because that's not what the map suggests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, on the site map, you're talking about the orange boxes that I've drawn on. Yeah, that's the car park and the campsite. They're not structures. They are just to denote where we're going to utilize car parking and camping. The actual structures are much smaller and within the estate.
So I'm sorry, Chairman, I've got to come back again. In that case, if you actually look at the map, if those areas are designated as the car park and the as the camping area, then effectively the event site is the whole of the marked area around the boundary.
And that's your final question now.
Yes, Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm tired of making the point.
I mean, maybe we've crossed wires, and I'm talking, and Mr. Frost has got a point of where, but the parkland that I've lived in my whole life, I'm pretty certain I'm across its enclosure and its and the parts of it that we're using. But I'm happy if Mr. Frost needs to show me the map or whatever. I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, a question, Councillor Wood would like to ask a question, John.
John, can you clarify what is the actual event area we're talking about? It is the whole area of the whole patch?
The licensable area is submitted. I can show you the copy of the plan of the licensable area. That is the plan that is submitted for the licensable area. The event itself can take place within that licensable area. Well, as there's been a plan submitted for the event space, that's where the event itself must take place. It's common practice to have a bigger licensable area so you can control access, because security industry authority licensed operatives can only operate within a licensed premises and at the boundaries of a licensed premises. That means people would be able to access the property right up until the event if the entire site wasn't licensed. A good example being Aries Park, where events take place within the stadium, but the entire park is licensed, so people can be controlled entering the park itself.
Does that affect the actual public rights of way going through that?
It can affect the public rights of way. It is a premises, therefore it has the same obligations, and security does have the right to stop and check what people are entering the site for. But with regard to the right of way, they have the right to pass through. But the security wouldn't have that right to stop and check them if it wasn't within the licensed area.
I presume you've had no notification of temporary order.
No.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I did promise I'd come back to you. Good question now. Turning this microphone on and off. Well, perhaps I should have a sound check. Can I go to responsible authorities now and ask Aaron if you could introduce yourself?
Okay, good evening. My name is Aaron Haggis. I'm the Central Licensing Officer. I cover both Conway and Denbighshire. As one of the responsible authorities, I receive all applications, whether they be temporary events, premises license, or variations. North Wales Police are not satisfied that the application will promote the four licensing objectives, in particular the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of nuisance. To begin, it is the opinion of North Wales Police that the applied times for licensable activities are excessive and will continue into time periods which may be considered late night or very early morning, which will be unsociable. This may potentially have a negative impact on the surrounding area and its communities, and potentially those attending. The premise is a rural location which has surrounding properties, residents and businesses. The premise is not purpose-built for a festival, rather rural land. Therefore, any noise emitting from the premises will not be absorbed in a similar vein to a purpose-built venue, such as Aries Park. A temporary event of a similar nature, which has already been highlighted, was held at the property in July 2021, which generated a disproportionately high number of complaints and reports to North Wales Police, which were not only noise complaints, but also complaints of a rave, complaints of traffic issues, complaints of fireworks and firearms being used, drug use and damage to the locality. North Wales Police did attend the site and assurances were given that the noise and behaviour would be managed, but complaints continued to be received and we were not satisfied that our advice and guidance was taken on board. At the time, this was particularly frustrating as the force were particularly under-resourced due to significant pressure due to the pandemic. The applicant has not specifically addressed the four licence objectives within this application and how they will be promoted in sufficient detail in their initial application. Unfortunately, this remains the same after subsequent requests being made to the applicant. There's not been a detailed proposal of how any of the 4 licensed objectives will be promoted, specifically the prevention of crime and disorder. The applicant has stated that they will coordinate between on-kilter organisers, security staff, directors and the local authorities to ensure a positive action programme for combating crime and disorder is in place. There's been no progress on this programme or report. I have not seen any evidence of it. I've not been provided with any kind of copy or kind of framework on which I can give a reasonable judgment as to whether it be sufficient. The applicant made reference to a full event management plan in their initial application. This was only submitted after the application and at the request of a responsible partner. Said document was a generic document that was potentially sourced in response to the request and had not been specifically tailored to the event or the application. The event management plan was littered with mistakes, contradictions to the application and anomalies such as that attendance would be in the thousands, that athletes would be given allocated warm-up types, and children should be accompanied. This suggested that the applicant had not even read the document before submitting, which is a general concern. The event management plan also made reference to plans and risk assessments which were not included. A very basic risk assessment has been received, but this was only received today, the 11th of July. Without an adequate and accurate event management plan with supporting plans and risk assessments, it's very difficult to make a balanced and fair judgment in terms of the 4 licensed objectives and the provision for the safety and well-being of attendees and staff. The applicant was made aware of the concerns and guidance was provided as to what could be included in event management plans, such as crowd management, alcohol licensing, training for staff, a dispersal policy, search policy, drunk policy, drugs policy, incident reporting, security management plan, communication plan, and management structure and rota for the festival, so that if there were concerns, there'd be a formal process which could be followed by those raising those concerns. During the SAG meeting, the applicant was advised to consider the layout of the documentation, one part which specifically dealt with the setup, close down and contractors at the event, and the second part which focused on attendees. The applicant did acknowledge that the event management plan was poor and set to rectify the plan. However, the subsequent updates have only shown a minor improvement and still need extended planning, and disappointingly, my recommendations have not been adopted or incorporated. Again, there's been no detailed proposal of how the 4 licensed objectives will be promoted, which fall within the application process and should not be assumed to fall under the event management plan. No security event management plan has been received by North Wales Police to date. Although there are only expected to be an attendance of 400, licensable activities are scheduled for an extended time, which may leave attendees vulnerable and which may have an adverse effect on the local area. I'm also aware that attendees have been informed that they can bring their own alcohol, which generates the concern of unsupervised and unmanaged consumption for the duration of the event, not only during the time of licensable activities, which may present concerns associated with preloading and sideloading. Greater attention should have been given to the event management plan, as the specifics of how the festival will be managed are essential to ensure that the festival is run correctly and that concerns and challenges can be managed appropriately. The document has a consistent theme of assumption, intention and promise when it is detail and what will be done that is required. There is concern that the applicant is not in the position to adequately manage such an event in the appropriate manner. There are other venues within the county, which have a late licence, but these venues have been designed to accommodate such licensable activities and have gone through a process of mediation, which I would highlight has required extensive work from all parties. In reference to the timing of the licensable activities, North Wales Police have serious concerns regarding the premises license being granted, specifically the times that licensable activities are being sought to end at 4 AM. A suggestion end time of 11 PM was made to the applicant, but they felt that 4 AM was a reasonable medium. Given that the applicant is seeking for 0900 to 0400 from Friday and Saturday for licensable activities, this event verges on being almost a 24-hour continuous event, with noise potentially being generated for almost 24 hours a day. Such consideration should be given that noise may be generated by attendees camping, as there is nothing to suggest that they will be on their own, that they will not be of their own free will to generate noise, which is feasible with 400 revellers camping within close proximity of each other. Therefore, the concerns and the objections to this application remains from North Wales Police, despite engaging with the applicant.
Thank you very much. Do you wish to make a comment on what you just
Thank you,
heard?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Well, to begin with, our EMP, which you mentioned there, the original document was produced in advance, and I submitted it when I was asked. The reason it was generic was because I engaged a company called Red Squirrel, who run multiple festivals using this EMP, and I got them to custom it to our event. On submission, you pointed out that parts of it were incorrect and it was generic, but it was supposed to be generic. It was supposed to be foolproof. So I rewrote the EMP to your specifications, and then I for more comment, and I put, and to date, I believe that all of your pointers have been involved in that I think are relevant, are being brought into the EMP. It's been updated multiple times, and we've even spoken about it. You even sent me a document asking me to include things, and I've included them. As for some of your other points, there is a cap on the alcohol that can be brought in, so there will be, there's a reasonable cap on alcohol, so I'm not worried about that. And in terms of the security and the prevention of crime and disorder on the site, we have engaged a security company. There are up to 8 guards on site, 24-hour cover. All of them will be SIA badged. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm quite confident that the security of the site is well looked after. Are there any further points you want me to readdress?
No, I think I just reiterate that you provide a document that highlighted athletes warming up, and for myself, that's a red flag. That suggests to me that you've not given true consideration to the documentation that you're submitting, and that it was basically a knee-jerk reaction. It's frustrating because we haven't been able to have the dialogue, but because you have not been able to provide me with the specific details that I have requested. There is reference to documentation, again, with the prevention of crime disorder. I've not seen any program that you make reference to. And that's been quite frustrating for me, because I think it's integral that North Wales Police work with all applicants to provide the correct guidance so that events are run accordingly. And a significant factor is the safety, not only of attendees, but of the staff on the site. And we have to be in a position whereby, should there be an incident, it doesn't have to be the most serious incident that there can be that we could imagine, but the smaller generic incidents that may be associated with festivals. So somebody may have, drug related or alcohol related or hazard related, that there are steps in place to support the staff as they deal with it. We wish for applicants and premises to take full accountability and responsibility. They can take appropriate action, so that should North Wales Police or any other emergency services have to attend the site, then they're already safe in the knowledge that correct action has been taken to safeguard those people affected, and also to safeguard staff who are having to deal with these incidents. It's not necessarily let's just have a festival and basically hope for the best, which unfortunately is the vein that I get from the application and the discussions that we've had. Safety is paramount, absolutely paramount to what we aspire to within the licensing trade. And I don't feel that there's enough here to suggest that this has been taken as a priority for yourself. The fact that the EMP is broken down into so many different factors which cover contractors, etc. It's a muddled up document, and it doesn't strike me that professional attention and time has been given to it, which is frustrating. As you made reference to Red Squirrel, we did attempt to engage with that company when an application was submitted last year, but they chose to withdraw, which was very frustrating, because again, it came at a very late stage. And our opinion when we engaged with Red Squirrel was, let's see where we can get with this. Let's see what can be agreed to move forward. And unfortunately, they chose to desist and move out. And that's where my main concern is coming from with regards to this documentation.
If I may, Chair?
Thank you,
Just
Mr.
a
Haggis.
point out,
Yes,
please.
Mr. Donnelly.
With regards to this application, it's already been determined by the licensing authority that only 2 of the objectives are engaged, and that's crime and disorder and public nuisance, not 4. That is in the report, and that has already been determined by the licensing authority. Consumption of alcohol is not a licensable activity. And also police resources and any other local authority or blue light resource or emergency services are not a matter for this committee. They are a matter for North Wales Police, North Wales Fire Rescue and the Ambulance Service.
Can I just ask a question, please, Chair?
Yes, Councillor.
Sharon, the promotion of public nuisance disturbance provided to the police and to you, John, has it been satisfactory or has it been non-plus? Can you just fill me in on that? Because we've got additional, additional stuff that came through to us today, but I can't see anything in there.
No, I feel that the applicant keeps referring back to the event management plan when the applicant would have been in a better position to address the 4 licensing objectives. John's kindly pointed out that there is only 2, but at the time when the EMP was received, there was mention of children, so that consideration had to be made. But frustratingly, had the applicant looked at the 4 objectives, because that is the purpose of the hearing, that falls down to the application. The event management plan should be supplementary to that. However, it seems to have taken precedent over what is being applied for here. So the public nuisance, prevention of crime and disorder, North Wales Police are not satisfied that it is being actively promoted.
Thank you, Mr. Haggis.
If I may, Chair, just to reiterate, there's no requirement to consult prior to an application with the responsible authorities. A mediation was attempted with the responsible authorities and didn't work appropriately from both parties. With regard to the hours of operation and trading, the government acknowledges that different licensing strategies may be appropriate promotion of the licensing objectives in different areas. The 2003 Act gives the licensing authority power to make decisions about hours during which premises can conduct licensable activities as part of the implementation of their policy. However, licensing authorities must always consider each application and must not impose predetermined licensing hours without giving individual consideration to the merits of the application.
Does that include mediation, though?
Basically, Chair, it gives you the opportunity to decide what conditions are placed on the application should you wish to place them on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donnelly. Now I'll turn to Mr. Williams. Will you please introduce yourself and your position?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Hugh Williams. I'm Principal Environmental Health Officer with Conwy County Borough Council. I think there's a need in the first instance here to separate my first objections or my representations to the licensing committee as a responsible authority, in that I was extremely unhappy would be an understatement to what I've been given as part of the noise management plan. And not only that, but Aaron here has referred to the events management plan. And there's only two or three paragraphs in that, and he actually stated that, you know, the maximum noise limit at any noise sensitive premises would be, noise sensitive property would be 85 decibels. Again, 85 decibels is a lorry, a heavy goods lorry going past your house. No thought, no consideration, and it just shows a clear or lack of understanding of the applicant with regard to noise. And again, it's been very. And then I did ask for because the premises license application said that there was a full noise management plan. I asked for a copy. I got the doctored one from last year. Last year, as Aaron has referred to, we tried to engage with the people that had applied for two 10s on the site and the premises license. And I said, right, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do X, Y, Z. Come back to me with a noise management plan and we'll see how we get on. They decided to withdraw the application. So we didn't have this meeting last year. It would have been great if we'd have had this meeting last year. At least, the limits would have been set. But we're here again. The first noise management plan, again, like I said, was just a doctored version of last year's. It was useless, pathetic. Again, last minute. Thankfully, again, last minute, the applicant engaged F1 Acoustics. Bit of a panic, bit of everything else, and on reading it, it looked okay. I did have one or two issues, and I did have a chat with the author about it by email, and he explained one or two things to me, which I was grateful for. And again, this evening, 8:20, was it 2 minutes before, the new noise consultant has advised me that he can model it and make it work properly. I don't know. I've absolutely no idea. The only thing I know is the past history. And I know John will refer to the past history, and you're not allowed to take into account and everything else. Some of my gravest concerns is that, going back to having discussed this with North Wales Police after the John's going to smile now, I know he is, the 2021, that, North Wales Police turned up, told them to turn it down, wasn't. My concerns, for example, is that if the noise consultant says you're too loud, how much sway will that person have on the person on the mixing desk, on the act, on the DJ? I don't know. Will the DJ listen to the noise consultant? Will adhere to it? There are so many ambiguities and unknowns. Yes, I did enter into mediation with the applicant, and I suggested 11 o'clock. Blank refusal. I don't think the lady over there mentioned the main stage in Glastonbury closes at 12. I have absolutely no idea why this place, it talks about the scene. I have no idea why residents in rural Conwy should be subjected to this noise. Potential, sorry, I will have to put the word potential noise, as they had again 2021. I have grave concerns that should you allow this license. And if you were to allow the license, then you should either this evening we agree on conditions when it comes to noise, or you let officers in liaison with John discuss any noise conditions, specific, workable, strict noise conditions. Because it's my, it is my hope that, if you have regard to the Noise Council's code of practice, I should, if you were to grant this license, I should go to any of the 20 noise sensitive premises and stand in their front yard at 2 o'clock in the morning and not hear that noise. Because that is what the Noise Council says. I should not hear it. But I will say, if I do, we will take the matter further.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. It does beg the question, why didn't you engage with the two authorities before? I mean, and also it begs the question that it is now 5 minutes to the events taking place, if you like. And I have concerns about that as well. Why didn't you? Perhaps you could answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, happily. This whole process from 2021 until right now has been a learning curve. It has been me and my co-director trying to get this right. The reason that the application was withdrawn last year was for business reasons, and we didn't think we could, in the lull that the festival industry had last year, we didn't think we could sell the tickets to make enough money to put in place this noise management plan and make sure that we didn't disturb any of our neighbours. I'm a member of the community. I don't want to upset my neighbours. I want this to work. This process from application to today, at every stage, we've been trying to improve and trying to take on board advice from the Security Advisory Group, from the police, from the EHO. It's the reason everything keeps getting, we try and improve on our policy and our noise mitigation plan at every stage. The license, again, last year we withdrew it in good faith and in hoping to try and bring this event to bear in a much better way. Now, in terms of trusting my word, or that this event will go according to plan, there is a noise abatement notice placed upon me and my father in the estate, and so it's not just whether I break the terms of the license. I'm fully aware, and everyone is fully aware, that if any noise nuisance occurs, I can be criminally prosecuted. It's not just my word I'm holding here. I'm totally aware of the stakes here, and I want it to work. And we welcome any noise protocols from environmental health. We'd welcome any reasonable pointers they can put in place, or protocols or level caps or whatever, because we are confident with our noise management plan that has been improved at every stage. We are confident in it, and we are confident that we will not disturb my neighbors. They're my neighbors. They have been my whole life. They will be my whole life. This is my community. I'm not here to be reckless. But in that way, we would happily engage with environmental health at any point in this regard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If I may,
believe
Chair,
it or not, believe it or not, we are still at the stage of asking questions of the.
Chair, if I may, as I was mentioned.
Of course you can.
With regards to conditions of license, I can't agree or apply any conditions of license outside of this hearing. That is subject to the members. I can amend those conditions to make them enforceable, but I can't do that in conjunction with any of the responsible authorities. It is a matter for the licensing authority. So as the environmental health officer says, that can't be done. It is for you to apply conditions and for me to make sure they're enforceable. With regards to mediation, mediation was attempted on 2 occasions and failed due to technical issues and availability of people. And some discussions were had, but they were very limited. And the applicant did attend Conway Safety Advisory Group, which is a representative of multi-agencies, including police, fire, health and safety, trading standards, trunk road agency, highways, and so on and so forth, and did gain advice. And I previously said there's no representations or concerns with regard to safety at the event from that group. I must also reiterate that, because it's been mentioned numerous times, you shouldn't, as members, consider, but I can't control what people say, at any previous event. And I also have to mention, as it's part of my report, that both the police and local authority pollution control officers are authorised under the Antisocial Behaviour Act 2003, and if they have concerns while they're at an event, that they can close and stop that event immediately. In no case has that happened.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I came back with John's comments, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, if it's to do with John, immediate comments, yes. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the solicitor. Go on.
Unfortunately, for us, we were only made aware of the 2021 event at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, following the event, when our phones were red hot with people complaining. Therefore, we can't go and close somewhere down if we're not aware that it has or was taking place at the time. Can I ask one question of the applicant, if I may? He's referred to, and I think Alex has referred to as well, that the co-directors of...
It's simply what we call each other as we are organising this event. He is directing the content and I'm directing the production.
Right, so it's not you're not a co-directors of a company?
No, just of the
right, okay,
the brand.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Did I answer your question? Thank you. And your comments are noted anyway about 2021. Nashwan, are you there?
Yes, Chair. It was just if I may.
Do you want to come in?
Just a quick one to Archie, just following up on what the environmental health officer said. If I may. So
go ahead. You can hear me now.
Yeah, thanks. So the environmental health officer said that if one of the noise consultants on site said that the noise was too loud, and either made a recommendation to one of the DJs or to one of the event staff, would those instructions be listened to? And how would you make sure it would be that all instructions from your noise consultants are complied with by your staff?
That is a question to you.
Well, it was to Archie, but any of the team can answer if they feel someone is better on the team to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The system that we deploy is obviously personally managed by a consultant on site, but it's also an online logging system that logs every activity that takes place. So when a request is made to or an instruction is made to a sound operator, that falls into the log. There's also a public access to that log, so that if any member of the public wants to make a submission, a link will be placed on the website so that they can make a submission directly into the noise consultant. So when a complaint is made via that method, the complaint is immediately received and can be immediately acted upon. So there's no chance of mobile phone connections not working or people not answering phones. Once the complaint has been submitted or the comment has been submitted, it's there. So the whole event is logged from beginning to end and ends up with a very large document full of every incident or instance of intervention which has taken place. That also includes data from the off-site meters. So we place these meters in a position where they are in effect doing what Hugh has mentioned, standing outside the possibly affected properties and feeding back data in real time. Now that is an online system that the council would have access to in real time via their own mobile phones or mobile devices. So the visibility is there of everything that takes place. I appreciate that that is not sufficient. That is not sufficient. You would have to have trust in the actions of my officers in terms of intervention, and you would have to have trust in the organizer in supporting that to make sure that the sound levels were reduced according to the instructions. What I can tell you as noise consultants is that all the method and the logging and the maintenance of data is in place in order to enable proper decisions to be made. We can only advise the organizer. If the organizer overrules what we say, we don't have much option. We can't go against the organizer. So we rely absolutely upon the support of the organizer in order to make these interventions. What I can say is that this type of music, this kind of event, is being held as relatively new events all over the country, and we are answering the same questions and considering the same problems in many, many different rural areas. Often they're linked to estates, to large houses, areas of land where there is space to hold these things, and they're tough. It's a tough job keeping them under control, and we've been successful. In the most part, we've been very successful in achieving that, but it's not an easy job, and there are no guarantees. So it relies on the support of all stakeholders, and primarily, of course, the organizer.
Okay, that's helpful, but I would like Alex or Archie or both to explain to myself and the committee how are you going to ensure that any instructions or any recommendations from the data are going to be listened to when you get these, when and if you get these reported in real time.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. The any instructions we get from our acousticians that aren't listened to, that will be listened to by the sound engineers, because it's us that are paying for their systems, and we have them employed there. And I'm sure that, and we will make the engineers aware who own the systems that this noise abatement notice and the closure of could cause closure of the event, and losing the license could close the event, which would mean they lose their systems. So we have total control over over the levels in that respect?
To further that, the only people who will have any control over the actual how loud the systems go is the sound engineers, and there are sound engineers at every single stage, at every single time that there is music playing at any moment on the site. And yes, so no one playing or no one in the crowd can have any influence on this in the slightest. And obviously, you know, we take it as the most important thing with the running of this event.
And all the advice is going to be followed, and all the instructions are going to be listened to.
To the letter.
Okay.
Yeah, to the letter. To that extent, we actually are going to try and go above and beyond what's established, just because we also understand that with regards to the abatement situation, it's more at the discretion of what is seen as a public nuisance. And so to that extent, we want to make sure that we are working with everyone in the local community to actually to make it work, even if we could prove from a scientific point of view that the dB levels are not at the kind of licensed agreeable level. That makes sense.
There's nothing more from me, Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Nashwan.
May I just ask a question in relation to that point?
I think we are still at the point where objectors are asking questions of the applicant, so therefore you can.
I'm grateful, because is this internet related then? Is all this gathered by the internet?
The system has a back-end data storage system via the internet. However, the communication with the noise meters is performed over a system called LoRaWAN, which is a low-frequency radio communication system which is not affected by interference or obstruction. So we have a range of up to 5 miles using LoRaWAN, which ensures that the data reaches the site. So in the sense that the data storage and reporting takes place over the internet, and of course the receipt of any complaints would be received via the internet, the transmission of that into the system is over LoRaWAN.
Because the difficulty, Mr. Chairman, was on the 21st of June, when there should have been a meeting with the police, the internet failed, did it not? And you couldn't attend. So there's a blackout then from an internet point of view. What would happen if we had another internet blackout as we had on the 21st of June?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't in Cloycork or in Wales when that meeting was placed. I was working in Halifax, I believe, and that's where I was trying to make the meeting, and there was a blackout there. The blackout wasn't in Wales.
Okay, thank you.
If
I have one question. It's technical. It's a technical question. Are these monitors in place at the moment in time, or will they be in place before the event, if the event goes ahead?
Well, sir, they're in the back of my car at the moment. They are in Wales. Yes, they're in the back of my vehicle, and I'm very happy to put them out. I'm very happy to show them to you if you wish. Thank you.
If I may make a suggestion.
Out for me, yes, Mr. Donnelly.
As it's been discussed, that the EMP plan, although at present it's just a document that exists and doesn't exist until the event takes place, members may put a condition on the premises that the EM plan is available, adhered to, and briefed to all members of staff. And then if it becomes a condition of the licence, any breach of that plan then becomes an offence under Section 36 of the Licensing Act, which can or may be subject to the evidence, subject to prosecution or a significant fine. So members may consider that as a condition of licence, should they wish.
Thank you. As I pointed out, sorry, yeah, I've seen him. Yeah, as I pointed out, we're still at point 5, where the objectors can ask questions to the applicant. So therefore, could you please state your name?
Yeah, my name is Leon Roberts. I live about 2 miles away from Cloycork. The only issue I've got is we're 2.5 miles away, but the thing is, you're saying it's only 20 properties that are going to be hindered by the noise. So how many of these monitors are you going to have to cover the whole of Betws? Are we going to have one on our farm? Are we on our property? Is next door going to have one? How many? You can't have an endless amount of these monitors.
Well, we have a lot, but the normal quantity of monitors that we would deploy on a site like this would be between 4 and 6, and they would be deployed at the most representative locations. Obviously, a property that was further away, but in direct line with a nearer property, you would monitor at the nearer property because the sound levels would be higher at that point. We clearly can't monitor every single property in Wales, but we take a representative sample, and the system creates a model which gives us virtual results at other properties, so that we perform all the normal calculations for distance and absorption and topology and all the rest of it, and it's being done automatically in real time, so that out of a selection of meters we can represent the noise level at a number of other locations. Obviously not in traceable form, we can't claim that it's a class 1 measurement, but we can estimate, and if we see that there's a problem, we can go out with a handheld device and verify the findings. It's the same system that's used for the BBC orchestras, which with a relatively small number of microphones, we can assess the sound level for every seat in the orchestra.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, forgive me for all these questions, but obviously we haven't had an
That's fine.
opportunity to assess the information given us by today. So sound-wise, what's the decibel going to be, for example, at Plas Farm, which is a couple of 100 meters away from this event?
I think I could probably answer that by saying, what does it need to be? What does it need to be?
Well, the question is, what will it be?
Well, it will be what it needs to be, because I alluded to the noise management plan, which has been presented by F1 Audio, and they have assumed a background level. And normally the baseline for the assessment of potential nuisance starts with the baseline. What is the noise level under normal circumstances without the source? And the assumption in the noise management plan was 40 decibels. Well, I know that 40 decibels is far too high for the noise levels which pertain in the valley. I don't know the valley, but I know a lot of similar locations, and I think the noise level will be in the low 30 decibels, especially at night in that area. So that means anything that's above that level is potentially a nuisance. But the characteristic of the noise is also important. And you will, I think, understand that the most disturbing factor is beats, is bass beats. Almost overwhelmingly, the complaints that are received on these kinds of events are bass beats. So the most important thing is to make sure that there are no bass beats. And we operate a system which analyzes the pulse content of the sound coming from the site. And it enables us to minimize and obfuscate the bass beats so that they're not heard as distinct parts of the noise profile. So whilst absolute noise level might be a metric that is applied under the 1995 Noise Council guidelines, which I was part of writing back in 1995, and I'm now consulting on the new rewrite for the guidance for the Purple Guide coming forward. Times have changed a lot since that document was written. I know it's the guidance that you have and that you must follow, but the characteristics of audio systems are much deeper and more powerful bass, much more effective in projecting sound for long distances, and the guidance is inappropriate for handling those kinds of systems. So we've had to create voluntarily methods of analyzing what's going on and providing control. And hopefully the beats process that we've developed will be part of the new guidance. But it has proved to be extremely effective at enabling us to filter out bass pulses and to stop sleep disturbance. It's quite normal for somebody to be able to sleep through 40 decibels of murmur where there is no distinct pulse in the sound, but as soon as you add a pulse to it, it's inevitably a sleep disturbance matter. So our focus is very much on preventing sleep disturbance. So when you say what level will it be, what I will say to you is the level at a specific property must be such that it is not preventing sleep disturbance and does not contain any bass beats, because they are the primary drivers of disturbance in these cases. So the level on site will have to be controlled in such a way that the sound level at any specific property is at a satisfactory level to prevent nuisance. And in this case, that level will be below 40 decibels.
But Mr. Hugh Williams, who does know the valley very well, it's a shallow valley, which is why it carries much further. You'll agree with that. His recommendation is that this application should not go ahead. But going back to 100 meters away, there's going to be 300 people sleeping in caravans. We're not talking about domestic properties here. We're talking about caravans.
Sorry, so was that at 100 meters?
Sorry, I should say a few hundred meters.
Oh, well, it depends, because there's a very clear calculation over distance. So you'll have to tell me how far.
Okay, if we say 200 meters away.
Well, I don't believe they are 200 meters away, are they?
Sorry, maybe I could help, being the local. The sound systems will be much further than 200 meters from the caravan park.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman, 400 meters would be a more accurate account. So 400 meters for caravans now, not properties, but caravans, what will be if you've given me 30 decibels.
Well, the background,
I appreciate that what you're saying about the decibels.
It depends upon the area that you're in. Obviously, in a metropolitan area, it would be very different.
But what does your report say about it?
What does my report say about it? Well, I don't even know the location you're talking about, so you'd have to point it out on the map, and we'll have to do a specific calculation. And I'm happy to do that. But you probably don't want
it's
to do
taken
that
part on Thursday, isn't it? It's a bit late in the day for this to be done.
Well, I've only been appointed 5 minutes ago,
And that's the point we make.
what I'm telling you is that I have the means to make that calculation, and that the sound level at your reference property there will have to be below 40 decibels without any beat content in order to make this prevent disturbance. It will have to be. So whatever, there's no point in saying, what is it going to be? What the question is, will it be sufficiently low as to prevent sleep disturbance? And I say, yes, it will, because the system will give us the information we need to ensure that it is below.
You've not even been to the area to see where this caravan park is, with hundreds of people trying to sleep at 3 a.m.
Obviously, it's a sensitive location, so there will have to be a noise monitor there. And the noise monitor will be feeding back in real time the data which will tell us whether the disturbance is taking place. And the sound systems will have to be controlled in such a way to prevent that disturbance. It's the only way of controlling these kind of events. At extremely low levels, which is what we're talking about here, the lowest levels that are used on any kind of venue, it's very, very difficult, because the incremental changes that are extremely small can make a significant difference to disturbance. So we have to have real-time feedback from the receptors so that we know that we're not having an impact upon them. And it's one thing to say, what will the level be? The question has to be, what does the level have to be on site to ensure that the threshold of disturbance is not achieved at the receptor? And that, in this case, is going to be below 40 decibels, and it's going to be the absence of bass beats.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And thank you for advising us that. Does anybody else want to ask a question of the applicant, please?
Mr. Beale, you're obviously a technical gentleman that is well versed in his trade, and unfortunately you've been brought into the 11th hour, and probably picking up a poisoned chalice in some respects with the local community. What is evident here is there's no modelling being done. Reassurances that we were given. Personally, I was given them by Archie when he rang me on the telephone and, hey man, what's the problem? Well, when we've had and been through this experience, and I know it's John's against us mentioned in 2021. 2021 is the only thing we can judge what we experienced as a family living half a mile away was as if the sound was outside the window. We're in a caravan park further down, probably a mile and a half. We had people going round. My daughter was woken with regards to park warden. We've got problems on site. A mile and a half problems. What's the problems? We've got people complaining about a rave on Tanrails. Right, we'll go round, find out, check this one, check that one. And basically, it didn't turn out to be Tanrails. We had 300, 400 people staying there at the time, all complaining in the morning. We had today a lady ask could she have the weekend off because she's anxious about meeting our guests who are coming to the area, and paying good money for a tranquil position and location, that she doesn't want to be there because she was screamed and shouted at because children couldn't sleep, elderly people couldn't sleep. And again, despite your reassurances, Mr. Fesenhall, you are not good for your word. And we can only go on what was the experience that we've had. You told me that the speakers were going to be turned a different direction. You told me that it had been changed. You told me that people had been to my house to actually record and test it. And then you told me to turn off at 12 o'clock. Our experience was and is unfortunately horrendous, and you put the community under. It's quite clearly to me today here that the schoolboy errors continue to be made. How on earth we are today in COVID, we own businesses of caravan parks. Mr. Drakeford on the 14th of July? 14th of July allowed caravan parks to reopen on the 17th. You conducted on the 16th, you were open, clearly against COVID rules. Not only against COVID rules, social distancing rules, and this total sort of belligerent action with regard to the way you act and the way you carry on, not listening to learned friends from the police, health and safety, and then we've got people here now, 7:15, 24 hours before you're going to start playing music, of which times you did not know what times you're going to start playing the music. I would say, as I say, I, as a resident, a business person, a respected member of the community, to be putting you guys through all this today is disgusting. And I would honestly believe that you're doing better off using the last 12 months to have actually listened to these folks over here, got them on side, on board, also the local community. Mr. Beale obviously should have been 12 months ago and done his modelling. And then I'm sure that people here today on this side of the fence would be a lot more comfortable with regards to anything happening at Coed Cork Estate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I'm going to stop you there. I don't think there are any other. Mr. Donnelly, do you want to come in?
I haven't got any. Just a matter of process, Chair. Is there anybody online who's an objector? There's nobody online.
Hello, is there anybody online who wants to say anything?
Who's an objector?
Objector.
Yeah.
We're going to go to our questions then.
If there's nobody online, then they're entitled to have their.
Then to you.
If they have, they could have put their hand up by now. So thank you, Chair.
To do everything. Sorry, nobody's come back to me. Can you hear me? Yeah, nobody has. So we've reached the stage now where, as a members here of the committee, if we can ask questions to the applicant. So have you got a question, Councillor? Councillor Wood?
To reiterate, prevention of public nuisance plan, noise. Why has that not been provided to the police in it's mapped into your EMF, but why is it not provided as a separate document? Is considering what happened in 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe it has. Could you repeat the question? Maybe I misheard.
The prevention of public nuisance, part of the licensing act, yeah? For you as the applicant to explain to us how you're going to stop anything which has been described by the objectors. I'm particularly not seemingly see anything assuring me of that. And the next question would be, of course, the acoustic modelling, which Hugh has mentioned from environmental health, was not amended. It has, we have not got amended plan now. We have got a new expert here, but we haven't got an amended plan. Now, looking at that plan, it shows you the decibels a couple hundred meters away, between 50 and 35, depending on which part you take. So I'd really like to know the public nuisance is obviously been a major problem, and why you've not addressed that properly.
I think, well, firstly, the noise management modeling was updated twice by F1 Acoustics this year, once during the application period, and then once since, and then to the document that was shown to everyone, and to yourselves, it's what you've got in front of you, and then it will be updated subsequently by the acousticians that we have live, and improved upon once they're on site. Maybe, Chris, do you want to say anything more on that? Or is it...
Well, sir, I have a copy of the plan that I've run here. Obviously I've not presumed to send it to you because it would not have been accepted anyway. So, the thing about a noise management plan is it is a live document, and it can be changed and updated at any point up to the time that the event takes place. I have reservations about the noise management plan that's in place here. A lot of it is satisfactory. A lot of the processes and things that are in it are satisfactory, but the calculations, I believe, are based on a false premise, and that the noise levels that it proposes are too high and are likely to cause some degree of disturbance. So what I have proposed to the applicant is a redesign of the audio systems, the creation of large audio baffles to contain the sound. I've advised the applicant that the sound level that is achievable in those venues after those mitigations have taken place is going to be low, much lower than they would have wanted them to be for this kind of event, and that the potential impact at the nearest noise sensitive properties after that work has taken place would then be low under my assessment and would be within the 40 decibel range that I think is necessary to avoid disturbance. But it is marginal. It's not an easy science at those kind of levels. We're talking about very, very small differences in noise level, making a difference in terms of perceptibility at the receptors. I've mentioned bass beats. It is absolutely fundamental that there are no bass beats, because even at very, very low noise levels, the presence of a bass beat is something that is potentially disturbing and could prevent sleep, and we don't want that. So my advice is to fulfill all of those objectives. When I'm talking about objectives, I'm talking about noise management objectives. And the result is going to be something that is less than satisfactory as far as the applicant is concerned. The applicant understands that and understands that the intervention on the part of my staff is going to be draconian and absolute, and they will have to support it. They will have to support it. And to be frank, if they don't support it, we will up sticks and leave. We will just stop doing what we do, because we absolutely rely on the support of stakeholders in order to achieve the result that we get. And if we find that we're not being supported, we will advise the council that we're leaving, we'll advise the police that we're leaving, and we will leave. And the applicant can then look out for himself.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you. Yes, thanks. Can I just ask just what genre of music this is? Is this similar to what you see in the likes of Ibiza and things like that? Because that's heavily bass music, so it's obviously not going to be an operatic concert. So what sort of genre are we looking at?
So the music that's going to be played across the weekend is a pretty wide range, mainly electronic music. So there will be stuff that you might recognize in places like Ibiza. Of course, it is bass heavy music, electronic music, from house, techno, disco, that kind of stuff. And then there's also going to be a wide range of ambient and dubby kind of sounds as well. And the spectrum is pretty wide, but that's why we, in response to the previous question as well, in terms of preventing public nuisance, have cross-referenced the industry experts that we could find and have tried to work as hard and as closely with these people as possible to try and assure that there will be no disturbance on the base and that the levels on the properties will be met.
Thank you for that. So somebody who doesn't understand the difference between a house and garage, that's very useful to me. Right, we're at the point now where...
If I may, Chair?
Yes, Mr. Donnelly.
With regards to Councillor Hunter's question, with regard to type of music, it's relevant as to the type of music. Noise mitigation should cover all types of music. And although it should be limited disturbance to the neighbourhood, regardless of type of music, mitigation should take place.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. The objectors now will be invited to give any evidence and to call any witnesses. I know we've gone through a lot of this before, so could you please try and be as brief as possible? Thank you.
On behalf of Tanrath and also another caravan park that I've mentioned previously, which is closer, what we have is, and we've done, it's available to you, Mr. Chair, a count of how many people will be staying at these caravan parks over this weekend, arriving on Friday morning. They're booked in for Friday morning, and some of them are already there. Now, what we have is 160 booked at Tanrath. We have 100 private, and we're giving you conservative estimates here with about 200 people in there. So we've got 360 holiday makers at that resort on that occasion. Moving to, that is about 1.5 miles up the shallow valley that Mr. Williams has alluded to. I'll pause at this point so you can. I'm grateful, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Plas Farm Caravan Park, which is much closer, has 60 touring caravans with a minimum of 20 in each caravan, which includes children. That's the caravan park we've heard is 400 metres away from this site. There are 6 lodges with 2 people in each lodge and a cottage with 8 people booked in there. All these people again will be 400 metres. So we have a minimum of 360 people at Tanrath. I'm doing my maths very quickly. A minimum of 80 people at Plas Farm Caravan Park, all residing in caravans, not in domestic properties, which has been alluded to previously. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, you'll be aware of the noise resistance of a caravan to any sort of music at midnight, 1 o'clock. It will be devastating, as it was in 2021. I appreciate that's something that we can't mention. However, it was devastating at that point. We have staff members who are almost in tears, worrying about this application being granted because of the sheer backlash that they received from holiday makers on the last occasion. They simply don't want to be in work if this license is granted and this festival goes ahead, because they know exactly what will happen. They experienced it on the last occasion, and regardless of what was stated in evidence today by the applicant, we will have noise disruption at both of these resorts. On the last occasion, again, we've heard how assurances were given. Such assurances have been given again today, that if we're told to turn things off, we'll do it. We'll turn things off, don't worry. We'll turn it off, don't you worry. It won't be back on tomorrow night. All those went unheeded. The music started again, and every resident in that location, especially the holiday makers, were suffering because of that. The impact upon the businesses then of these bad reviews, which inevitably come from these types of events, will be devastating for both caravan parks. One-star review these days can ruin an entire park, and that is exactly what will happen should any member or holidaymaker be kept awake by this noise. We had children, we've got elderly, we've got people recovering from cancer even at these resorts who will be terribly disrupted if this festival goes ahead. Thank you. Those are the representations on behalf of Tanrath and Plas Fam.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any representation? Are you happy with that? Mr. Frost, I see you got your hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm gratified that you remember my name. I have, Chairman, made a written representation in respect to this application, which is included in the bundle that you have for yourself. The representation is in behalf of myself and my wife. I apologise that I neglected to sign the letter, which I only discovered when I received the bundle. I have visited the council offices to view the application, which proved to be scant. If this licence is granted, we suggest this should be subject to conditions whereby the organisers must demonstrate that they're capable of promoting the 4 licensing objectives. The application as it is suggests to me these objectives cannot be met, and the conduct of the organiser shows inexperience and a lack of understanding of these obligations. In our opinion, the licensing elements relating to hours for alcohol and music are excessive. They'll be taking place at times considered to be antisocial, namely late night and early morning. As has already been said, Glastonbury has a curfew at midnight, Wimbledon has a curfew at 11 o'clock, and I would ask you, would you be allowing these licensing hours to operate at Arias Park? When I visited the council offices, I was informed that I could request of the applicant the noise management plan, the risk assessments, the traffic management plan, and the event management plan that's referred to in the application. Upon request, these were not readily available, and to date, I have not seen them. The venue is situated in a rural, shallow valley, as we've heard, where noise travels a long way. We've heard from Mr. Beale that this site is difficult to manage. It is likely the music noise will adversely affect local residents. This represents a public nuisance. We live 4.5 kilometers away in a straight line and have personally experienced an unacceptable disturbance from a previous event in the venue in 2021. I only mention this because it is there to illustrate how sound travels from this particular venue. And as a result, the existing landowner and organiser, as they have admitted, are still subject to a noise abatement order. The venue has a fishing pond immediately adjacent to one of the licensed bars. It can be accessed over a low stock fence and through a wooded area within the licensed area marked on the map. This represents a significant hazard to safety for the public invited onto the premises and under the influence of alcohol. The boundary of the venue runs for approximately 2.5 kilometers along public highway, bounded by a mixture of low stone walls, stock fences, and hedges. This represents a significant opportunity for unauthorized access by all ages attracted to the event and to the music. We cannot envisage how this will be supervised over a 3-day event with 8 members of staff on duty. This represents a significant risk for harm to children and underage adults attracted to the entertainment. Moreover, as I've already mentioned, a public footpath runs through the site, so unless there has been a stopping up order, and I'm told that there hasn't been, the public will have a right of access, and that includes children. That is a right of access. They cannot be stopped. An event of this nature is like to put severe pressure on local public services and infrastructure from excessive consumption of alcohol and volume of traffic in a mainly rural area. This represents a nuisance to the public and a risk to public safety. The local area mainly comprises farming and tourism businesses, as we've heard. We cannot see how this event will enhance either. Previous experience shows local tourism businesses have been affected adversely by the noise during the antisocial hours. Customers affected by the event will very likely leave adverse reviews affecting future bookings through no fault of the business owners. Research has shown that in current times, 85% of decisions are made on the basis of social media reviews. If this application is approved in its present form, and if there is an incident relating to one of the 4 licensing objectives, then not only will this reflect on the landowner and organizer, but also on Conway Borough Council as the licensing authority and members of this subcommittee delegated to determine the outcome. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. I can assure you that we do take our job seriously, and we know at all times that we represent Conway County Borough Council. Okay, thank you. You now may ask questions of the objectors. Oh, sorry, Mr. Williams. Yes, of course.
Apologies for jumping in, referring to the objector over there. I think I may need to just advise you of the law when it comes to stat nuisance and statutory nuisance and everything else. Unfortunately, if somebody makes a complaint of a noise nuisance, they must be a resident of the county borough to make such a complaint. I think Councillor Hunter, Councillor Wood, Towing, Camille Bay area, they're aware, numerous caravans may wish to make a complaint about a pub or a club in the locality. Unfortunately, as a noise nuisance, we're not allowed to take it on board because they're not residents of. I understand the committee can take into account the adverse effect of the business, right? Also, if there are staff living on site or the owners of the caravan sites are there, then we would deal with or investigate any noise complaints that they wish to make. But unfortunately, when it comes to the legislation, we can't take a noise complaint from a visitor, a tourist. Did you just point that out to you? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. It's very useful. Now, did you want to come back to either Mr. Frost or Aaron?
I would just like to, for Mr. Frost's points, I think a lot of them were to do with public safety, and I think we've covered that already with the event area being closer than the premises license. We have engaged with the security advisory group, and they are happy with our access, with our emergency access, with the safety of the site. We had no further feedback from the safety advisory group with regards to our site. And in any case, we have medics on site, and in regards to traffic, we have a full traffic management plan in place. So the increased traffic in the area and the safety of locals has been completely covered.
If I may quickly, the no further comments that came from the SARG, we certainly read as a situation where they were happy with all of the procedures that we had set up in place. But that being said, any concerns that have been raised in this meeting, which if the license is granted, we'd be absolutely more than happy to go into further detail in terms of the members of the teams involved, their qualifications, in terms of the medical provision side of stuff, how we've abided with the Purple Guide, what we were scored in that, and how everything is going to be like run through, and because of course the well-being of everyone in terms of the community and also the people involved in the event is of paramount importance to us. Back to you.
And then in regards to the noise issue, which I think is the main issue that especially the businesses and the caravan parks have, Mr. Chairman, the sound systems and the technology we have on site is is light years from what we had in 2021 when they were disturbed. The systems won't even be pointing in the same direction. I've learned my lesson there. Don't point them at caravan parks. Enclose them. We have quadraphonic systems, which means that we have very, very short throw systems rather than the long throw rock and roll systems we had. Therefore, you can get 4 speakers playing very quietly, pointing down at the crowd so as not to leak anything out. We have a cardioid system whereby no bass or noise will be lost out the back of the system, so there'll be no noise leakage that is unnecessary to the enjoyment of the crowd. We will then surround the sound systems with baffling, which is basically just big hestons of straw that will then kill further bass beats. You know, this isn't just a system of monitoring; it's an active system on site that will then be monitored by Chris and his team.
To further that, with regards to the acoustic map for the noise mitigation, the NMP, which was submitted, which has then been cross-referenced and furthered by Chris here, the caravan sites in question can be seen on the maps which F1 Acoustics have submitted, and there are clear dB readings about where the sites in question are and the levels that will be in these areas. And Chris has made clear that he's willing to go further than that, because we understand that we need to really make sure that not only do people have are they not disturbed from the, as I said earlier, the scientific level, but also we just need to work with people, because ultimately we're trying to make this something which benefits the community, and that goes down to, you know, every single bit of positive feedback we've had from people, business wise, and also dealing with all the feedback which we've heard here today.
And finally, with regards to the noise modeling, even in our worst case scenario, the mapping, the third map, even in our worst case scenario, in terms of weather and wind and all this, that will be improved upon again by Chris. None of the caravan parks even register on our maps of noise, of dangerous levels of noise, even register. So that means that they will be lower than the ambient noise.
But to that extent, we are more than happy to put microphones in these hotspot areas and to work with you to prove that there will be absolutely no disturbance.
Mr. Chair, on that point, may I just come back?
What point are we on?
Is our evidence, the evidence of the objective?
Yes, go on.
What would stop someone just bringing their own mobile phone with a Bose speaker system, which we all know is extremely loud? What's stopping the tiny little things? And what's stopping at 4 AM, or if you're told to stop, them just carrying on the party and playing these music?
So we are going to submit a list. I've already made clear to the attendees on social media that we don't want speakers of any kind allowed, and we have a list which we have written, and we are going to make Steve and the rest of the SIA security team very aware of. So whether when they search the bags alongside excessive amounts of alcohol and anything else on the contraband list, they're also not permitted to bring any form of speakers on site. To top that, the demographic of people that are turning up to this kind of event, as I say earlier, the majority of them are friends and people that I know pretty well, all from within the music industry or people who work at events. And so to that extent, we have a level of trust and respect, as I have been to a lot of these events in my career as a manager and a booking agent. I have spent a lot of time in these scale of events and these size of events, and there's often, particularly with events of 400 people, there's a level of mutual understanding and respect that but like before the security would be forced to take measures, other people within the community, within the crowd, within the attendees would be making people like unbelievably aware, because they all know that we've had to go to these extents to make sure that the disturbances don't take place this year. And so there would be absolutely no scope for anyone to be doing something like that.
For someone bringing in camping gear, it's a huge amount of gear to search through. For example, a tent is massive. Are they going to unwrap the tent and check that there's no speakers inside, there's no drugs inside, there's no alcohol inside? Are they going to do that to every tent?
The search policy will be the same as at any other festival, but going beyond that, any sound system that is not one of our two modelled and monitored sound systems will be confiscated immediately when heard by the 24-hour security we have.
Thank you. Mr. Donnelly, you wanted to come in?
I would, Chair. People bringing sound systems onto a site is a matter of personal responsibility. If they choose to use them when they're not taking part in the licensed activities within the authorization, that's a matter for them as an individual. But it is a licensed premise. Therefore, the license holder has the right to remove them from the premises or confiscate any equipment that breaches the terms of entry.
Thank you. We're at the point now where, hang on, yeah, but it's the objectives, so the applicants asking questions. But I'll allow you to come in, Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I share your position as to exactly where we are in the agenda, because my understanding is that as one person who wanted to make a representation, and having done that, is that the applicant was then able to question me, but he made a statement, and I have to say I'm confused as to exactly what the question was, so I'm not able to respond.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Frost. I was at the same line as you, whether it was a closing speech or not. So we'll go back, we'll stay on the agenda. Have you got a question for Mr. Frost?
Apologies, Mr. Frost. I suppose I don't have a specific question there. I had an answer to his problems. Apologies.
Thank you. So, have we got any questions to the objectives?
No, I'm okay.
I'm fine. Any points of law?
Just two points for clarification. Other premises have been mentioned, Gladstonebury, Aries Park. Obviously, members are aware that they can't take into consideration the operation of other premises, as because members are not aware of what conditions are placed on those premises at this time. So please be aware of that. With regards to, it's been mentioned that noise and nuisance in rural areas, and it shouldn't happen. Noise and nuisance is not a matter just for rural areas, it's a matter for residential areas, and members should consider any mitigation regardless of the location of where the event takes place.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. I do believe Wimbledon was mentioned as well, some time ago.
Wimbledon was mentioned, but as I said...
Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to ask the objectors to make a closing speech now, or unless you regard your last statement as your closing speech. No, I did ask before, but there don't seem to be anybody here. Okay. This is the closing speech, and there'll be no comebacks on this, okay? And the same will happen to you.
Thank you. This objection to this application is on the basis that the granting of this application would be contrary to the licensing objectives, namely the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance. Now, I appreciate that Mr. Chris Peel has attended here today and obviously knows what he's talking about. However, it is, in my submission, too little, too late. What we have is him saying that he's aware of this area, he will do a few more things, or he will continue to work. However, the problem we have is, the bottom line is, if his censors say it's going over, we are very much dependent then on others to keep their word and to stop the application. Well, this didn't stop them when the police told them to stop in 2021, they continued. When local residents told them to stop, they didn't. What's going to stop them on this occasion? They've not worked with the police, they refused. They've not worked with environmental health. They were told, how about 11 o'clock? They said in no uncertain terms, no, it's 4 o'clock. We want 4 o'clock or nothing. And that is the view they're taking. It's the arrogance of the application that we object to. When asked how many people will be affected by this, there was no answer. Truth is, thousands of people will be affected for this, for 400 people to have this, we're not allowed to say rave, but this festival. These people have come to this area to holiday and they want to go back with fond memories, not of lack of sleep, children crying, or people worried about what's happening, staff worried about going to work. We cannot have that. And in my submission, that there is nothing that has been stated today that would prevent that. Those are my submissions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask the applicant for your closing speech.
Chair.
please.
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Am I allowed to make a closing statement as well?
Yes,
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Donnelly.
So throughout the hearing, the applicant has stated that this is a learning curve, when the reality is that they've basically stumbled through the process in hope with promise. Poor planning now leaves us in a position where a relationship of trust, assurance, guidance and confidence is not realistic. I'd like to highlight that the term is the prevention and not the response to crime, disorder or public nuisance. So measures should be in place to prevent, rather than a requirement for emergency services or the local authority to respond and to take subsequent action. North Wales Police are still not satisfied, so we're not in a position to accept assurances in good faith at this time. It is frustrating that we may be in a position to have to take action during the event and then any subsequent action based on the happening of the event, when concerns and mitigation is being presented in objection to the application here tonight. Reference to the licence objectives within the EMP can be described as blasé at best and not a tangible effort to how they will promote the objectives, merely a reference. There's been reference to SAG, but it should be highlighted that it was not satisfied during the meeting, with many questions raised with admission from the applicant that the EMP was rubbish. The SAG is not a committee that provides a collective judgment or decision, as is evident with the concerns continuing from North Wales Police and Environmental Health. Reasonable concerns don't seem to be taken into consideration by the applicant, hence the continued concerns being pushed back to them tonight, and those questions being raised to the applicant are not being answered in an appropriate manner, with continued assurances and promises that things will be improved, that things will be worked upon, when the reality is that the event is scheduled to begin tomorrow evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargis. Right. We will.
Sorry,
Anybody
Chair.
else from the objectors want to say
As-
something?
as an
Closing
object-
speech. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. I can only enforce what Aaron said about SAG. The Safety Advisory Group is there to give advice and guidance. It's not to rubber stamp. It's not to say great, fantastic. It's not to say go again. It's a lot of professional officers giving up their time to try and advise and guide any event within the county borough of how they can do things better. My concerns at the moment, and Chris has highlighted this, you know, and my concern is, and it's the same by the objectives over there. If one person, the noise consultant employed, can't carry the weight and tell the DJs, to tell the people, turn it down now, for Chris to threaten to take his people away, that's not a good place to be in. And for us to be notified maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, what are we supposed to do at 1 o'clock in the morning? Go out there and gather evidence for a breach of a statutory nuisance notice? I have concerns, and I still have the concerns. Noise modelling is not a perfect science. Chris himself has said it's a difficult place to model. I have concerns about the application, its duration, and the contents of the noise management plans that I've had already and any future noise management plan I'll receive.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. So is that the end? Closing speeches from the objectors. Thank you very much. Anybody on the Zoom? No. I'm going to ask the applicants now, please, to make a closing speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regard to the 4 licensing objectives, maybe I don't need to reiterate, but there will be no children on site. So that is one licensing objective dealt with. In terms of crime and disorder, we will have 24-hour security well within all SIA. We have a seizure policy, a searcher policy, a drugs policy, all the same as any other event of this type. In terms of public safety, I understand that the SAG is not a rubber stamping agency, but it is an agent. It is a group of incredibly professional, much more experienced people than me that all gave me feedback. I brought it on board. I actioned it, and they all, including the police representative on the SAG, had no further feedback for me once I'd actioned that. We also will have Purple Guide level of medical cover on site. We will have the fire department came and checked our access. They checked the safety of the site that we propose to use, and we have a full traffic management plan in place with Lantra 12D officers in control of that. Now, in terms of nuisance and in terms of noise, first of all, the system that we have in place, we have been assured it is possible to monitor these noise, but I will reiterate that even with the baffles, the cardioid arrays, the short throw sound systems, and Chris's modeling, I totally understand that we could miss something. A noise sensitive premises could be disturbed. The wind could change. We are perfectly aware of this, and we are very, very happy to negate the levels at that point. We are not here to upset the locals. I've lived at Coed Cork my whole life. I will live there my whole life, and I want it to be a success and it to be inclusive for the local community. I'm not out here to throw it in the faces of the local community. Now, if you can't put your trust in me just because of that, I totally understand. I burnt your trust in 2021, but I'm here to learn. And if you want fail safes, the DJs have no control, the artists and the dancers have no control over the levels. Ultimate control is mine. And if you want more than my word, then you know that we know there is a noise abatement notice over my head. This is a criminal procedure. It's not just my word you're taking. It could get me, my dad, and the estate all in lots of trouble. Now, as well as that, I could have just gone for a TENS. I could have moved this elsewhere. I came to the licensing and the application process in good faith. I wanted to engage with the council, with the responsible authorities, and with the community, in order to try and make this the best success I can for us and for the community. Now, I think that I think that's the end of my comment now.
To further that, we actively take on all the concerns that everyone has voiced here today, and we really hope that we have the opportunity to prove to you that what we've learned in the last 2 years can actually be done and executed in a way that we can actually celebrate the agricultural and rural environment in a way that works for everyone.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. That concludes the public. Mr. Donnelly.
If I may just clarify a few points, Chair, because it's been mentioned in various different guises, SAG, Security Advisory Group, Safety Advisory Group. Just to clarify, prior to this year, I was the chair of the Safety Advisory Group for 6 years. It is a matter of safety. It's not a matter for licensing applications. It is a consideration from multiple authorities, including Welsh Ambulance Service, North Wales Fire Rescue, and all the responsible authorities in the Licensing Act. The matter of the objectives is not part of SAG. It is purely a safety advisory group. I did attend the SAG meeting, so I can report on to members that the information with regard to safety was submitted, but there were omissions with regards to the licensing, which should have been dealt with and was dealt with outside of that group.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Well, thank you very much. As I said, this concludes the public side of the meeting. I'd like to thank you all. I do hope you've all believe you've had a fair crack of the whip, as it says, and that we will deliberate now. And we will, according to this, Mr. Donnelly.
Sorry, Chair, I've omitted to mention that this application expires. It's not a renewal. It won't renew itself automatically. After this event, there will be a further application will be required.
Thank you very much. And we will now consider what we've heard tonight, and the legal advisor will prepare the decision following this discussion. Now, I'm aware of the time constraints as well, so I'm assured that the decision will be conveyed to you tomorrow by email or whatever.
That's we intend to
soon.
send that.
Sorry, Nashwan.
Yeah, we intend to, given the time pressures, we do intend to get this out tomorrow.
Okay, that reassures everybody. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Recording stopped.